This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. Hello, Amplify You, Michelle Abraham, your host today. I am joined by my friend Dimple Arora. Dimple, hi, how are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. And so Dimple is half of the hosts of the I Am Mom podcast. Her and her friend Shaista host this amazing podcast. So it's called I Am Mom Parenting Podcast. And we had the privilege at Amplify You to help them go from idea to launching their show. And now it's been launched for a little while. So I thought this would be the perfect time to bring Dimple in and chat all about your guys' podcast journey and what it's been like for you guys, and how you have if you have some advice for our people who are thinking about starting a podcast still. And I just wanted to dive into that. But before we do, let me tell you guys a little bit more about Dimple. She is a holistic wellness expert. She specializes in helping especially teens and parents overcome all the traumas that we have, but focusing on not only our mind, but our body, our stress, anxiety. I've done an interview with her on our Blissful Parenting podcast all about using EFT to help kids with big emotions. So this is the kind of amazing content you're going to get when you listen to the I Am Mom podcast. So Dimple, take us back to, well, first of all, how did you and Shaista meet even first? And then how did you guys come up with the idea of starting a podcast?
Thank you for that introduction. It was such a privilege to meet Shaista. So both of us coach kids, and I have a background in high school teaching, and she's currently a kindergarten teacher.
That's awesome.
And so we came together during COVID times because we wanted to bring something to families to help us make a greater impact for families that needed help. So we met through a course that we both took together on creating a life coaching program for kids.
Cool.
So we met through there, and we were doing these mastermind groups with other parenting coaches. And then she actually asked me to come on to one of her programs to teach some moms who had just had babies during COVID. So I did some sessions for her classes where she was providing something to moms because she had just had a baby during COVID as well. And there was nothing out there because moms were feeling so isolated. So I came on there, taught a few sessions for her people, and we decided to start this podcast because we thought, how can we make an impact for parents during this time when they do not have their village, or they do not have other moms to reach out to or meet up with. And we wanted to get the information out there so badly. And I've been wanting to share so much information for so long. I wish I even started my podcast earlier, to be honest.
Everyone always says that, right? Including myself. I said that too. I wish I started 4 years earlier.
Yes. And I mean, I could have been teaching all this stuff a decade ago, I feel like, but divine timing, of course.
Right.
So Shaista and I had the idea, and we thought, how do we teach moms to feel happy and joyful during this journey of parenting? But not only just because everybody talks about, be a blissful parent, but how do you do that? What are the steps that you need to take to do that? So that's what we wanted to bring to our audience.
That's awesome. And I love what you said about like during COVID, like that village wasn't there. And it's so true and so interesting. Like remembering back to when I had my first kids or my kids, or first my first one, how important it was to like, get together with the moms, go for walks with the strollers, commiserate
Yeah.
about all the lack of sleep and breastfeeding problems we were having, right? And like
Yeah.
to have, I can't imagine what it was been like to have a baby during COVID where you couldn't do that, couldn't get together with other parents. And what a fantastic idea to like take that onto the podcast now where parents can tune in. And for some of our audience, this really resonates with my personal story, but why I started podcasting in the first place. Because when I was a new mom, I was struggling and to find motivation, and I turned on the podcast. I didn't find any parenting podcasts at that time. I found some business podcasts, but had I found some parenting ones, that would have been really amazing too. At the time I was listening to business podcasts, which then it motivated me, inspired me, and got me moving, put my earbuds in, take my son in a stroller for a walk. And so seeing the impact it had on my own personal mental health was huge. And so I can only imagine how the moms feel when they listen to your guys' show and realize that they're not the only ones. There's a community, there's a village. And in fact, your guys' show has really like, I want to say, like, without putting it in other words, it's really taken off. Like just the amount of people and support you've had behind it. What's that journey been like for you guys?
Oh, wow. It's been so rewarding. It's been so fulfilling to be able to use my voice to share this information and have messages come in to say, I really loved your episode on this. It really helped me to get through that week. Or your podcast is so inspirational. Thank you so much. I've learned so much. It's just so heartwarming, to be honest, right? And I'm so honored that it's having the impact it's having.
Yeah, that's amazing. And as a podcaster, there's nothing worse than you go out there and you have your content and you're sharing your message and you're like, hello, is anyone there? Like not getting that feedback back. So where are people giving you guys that feedback? Is it on social media? Is it through email? How are you receiving that?
I had a WhatsApp message today on WhatsApp.
On all channels, they're coming to you.
On Instagram. But, I have had those days or those weeks where I feel like, is anyone listening? How do I increase our listener, the amount of listeners, or how we're reaching people like that? I feel like that's something that we're working on and it's evolving. And it is something that I feel, concerned about, because I want more people to be listening and to have access to this information. And there's so many podcasts out there, and to even be found is such a privilege.
Yeah, well, and to get that feedback initially is so great too. So now, now you want more of that, right? Because now you're onto something. People are resonating with what you guys are saying, what you're doing. So have you guys, what's the extension from the podcast? You guys are you funneling people into a community, into a program? How are you building that relationship beyond the podcast?
So that is something that I'm definitely working on right now, Michelle. I'll have to say, truthfully, it's been just sharing the information. There's no funneling. There's no nothing beyond that at this time. But I do feel that it is the next step. So that's something that I'm diligently working on, because I do want to provide more than just the podcast. I want people to be aware of what I offer, what my services are. I want to give them as much value as I can possible on the podcast and off of the podcast.
Right. Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think those communities come over time too, right? You got to build the foundation first. Speaking of which, like, how do you guys handle being co-hosts? I know that's a question a lot of people ask. Like, it's so much more fun to do it with someone else, which is awesome. But then oftentimes partnerships or co-hosts, they don't make it past launching. You guys have made it past launching. You've made it past a year already, right? I think we're over a year and you guys are still thriving. So what's been your kind of secret to success in that co-hosting partnership?
So June will be a year for our podcast. And we stay consistent. I believe consistency is the key. So Shaista works full-time as a kindergarten teacher. So we've dedicated Fridays to our recording days. And somehow, through the beauty of the universe, every guest that we've had has been able to make that small sliver of time slot that we have available on Fridays.
Perfect.
And
fine.
Exactly. So that's the way we've been doing it. In terms of the technology, we have a great, I mean, you got Amplify You has been the greatest podcast production company. So we don't have to think about that part. And then after, in terms of the marketing, that's where I struggle a little bit because I want to just get it out there and put it in all the places. And Shaista is a little bit more occupied with working full time. And so she has somebody else doing the marketing for her. And I do feel like that has been a little bit of a struggle, but in terms of our motivation, our message, our intention behind the podcast, we've just been very consistent and we haven't wavered in our energy for it.
Right. Yeah, which is so important. And I'm sure you guys are checking in with each other regularly. Is this still working? This is still going well? Like you're still loving this. And I think that's an important piece that as long as you're still loving it and still having an impact and it's a positive thing. Like most people, is it the most fun thing you do in your business? Because a lot of people say that.
It is the best part of my business at this time. I absolutely love it. I put my whole heart and soul into it. I don't mind spending extra time marketing or writing show notes or figuring out the edits. Like actually we barely edit. Only the last few episodes, I was like, I need to edit a little bit, but I was just like, give it all raw, whatever it is, it is. Right. And so I love it.
That's awesome. So for those people who are maybe listening to this episode saying, I want to start a podcast, like, how do I find a co-host, or like, what's something like, I know for you guys, it was kind of divine timing. And like, let's let our audience know, you guys are literally on opposite sides of the country. So like, you're not like best buds from down the street. Like you guys, as you mentioned, you met online, you met in a group, you live on opposite sides of Canada. So for people who are thinking about having a co-host, what are some suggestions that you have for them? And I loved your consistency. I think that was perfect.
I believe that having a co-host is amazing. Shaista and I, we felt like we needed that support in the beginning, right? If somebody feels confident enough to launch a podcast on their own, they should go for it, because it's you get to be able to speak your truth. And as you get into the flow, you'll be able to just share so openly, whatever you want, anytime you want. I love having a co-host who shares the same mission as I do. So if you do have a co-host, it's important to share the similar missions and intentions for why you're doing it. Right.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And making sure, like, and keeping the energy up too. I think that's what's really helpful, having a co-host for that energy. What we're seeing a lot at Amplify You right now is co-hosts that started podcasts together, that then they each want to spring off and start their own, as well as having the co-hosted one together. So any plans for you guys to have multiple podcasts now?
It's so inspiring. It's so inspiring to have a podcast, because you also get inspired through your guests, through the information that you're sharing, and you want to keep sharing more and more and more. So there's no plans right now, but so far going strong, and we'll see how year 2 goes.
That's awesome. Yes. As I was sharing with you when we were recording the Blissful Parenting episode, like I love hosting that podcast because I become such a better parent. Like the personal development that happens as a podcast host, no matter what your subject is, you become such a better person when you're using your voice and exercising it. But 2, you're also gleaning off of these amazing experts you're talking to as well. And I'm sure with the co-hosting too, that's really helpful because you guys get to share a lot of your own content, but you also have guests. How do you guys navigate having a guest? Like, do you have like a signal as to like what to say between like, okay, it's your turn to ask a question or your turn to ask a question? You guys like signal each other, or you just have in that vibe and know each other?
While we're recording with a guest, we just put all our trust into the universe. There's no signaling. It's just this flow that just happens automatically every time. And it's always so beautifully guided. And I feel like our guests that come on, they're so also, there's this alignment that happens with the three of us, and it's just powerful.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I think you guys are just so in sync that it happens naturally really well. And that's great. Now, I want to congratulate you guys because as some of our audience knows, I do write for Podcast Magazine under the category director of Kids and Family. And I had the pleasure of rating you guys as an under the radar podcast this month. And Paris Hilton was on the front of it. So how cool is that to be in a magazine with Paris Hilton? And yeah, so I just wanted to say congratulations to you guys, because I felt your show is a show that needs some more visibility, because it is so incredibly, and you guys have done such a great job. And so I hope that under the radar is giving you some more visibility. And I can see your community rallying around you guys from the excitement that you guys were in the magazine.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was such a beautiful surprise. And for you to be in this industry and flow with it so beautifully, it just inspires us so much more. To have a mentor and a leader like you in the industry, it really gives us that comfort, and it makes us feel more at home in what we're doing, to be honest. So thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. You guys are totally deserving of it. And I love that we were able to showcase your show, and really hopefully other people have seen the amazing show that you have, got some more listeners and some subscribers for your show. And just so that you guys can continue on this mission that you have to really help parents and families thrive in a family environment at home that's so helpful to everyone. Do you want to share with our listeners a little bit more about what you do specifically before we let you go?
Sure, thank you. So I am the founder of Mindful Evolution. I coach kids, tweens, and teens to reduce the effects of anxiety and negative emotions and optimize health. So I use a holistic and integrative approach in my coaching, which focuses on improving mindset, processing emotions, optimizing gut health for better mental, emotional, and physical health outcomes.
How awesome is that? It was really great because before we were recording the Blissful Parenting interview, I was stumbling over my words. So we had to start the recording again, which doesn't happen very often, but had to today. It's been a long day on the computer. And this exercise of doing some tapping in a figure 8 around my eyes and over my eyebrows was amazing. It was like I drank a cup of coffee and felt so much more awake, and my brain was working a lot better all of a sudden. So I have to thank you for that today. That really helped me through the computer late afternoon, fuzziness without the caffeine. So
it happens to all of us for sure. I'm doing that exercise all the time.
Right. I love it. It's great. So for those of you, just before you get onto a podcast interview, great thing to do. So Dimple, before we let you go, any last words for our audience out there who are thinking maybe starting a podcast, who have just launched their podcast and are ready to take their message to the world?
I want to tell anyone who's launched a podcast or who's thinking about it to go for it, to really have belief in yourself, that what you're putting out there matters, that your mission matters, your story matters, and the right people that need to hear it will come. The listeners will come. And it's a matter of staying consistent and believing in yourself.
Ooh, I love that. And if you don't believe in yourself, take my belief and run with it, because I believe in you. And I believe that you guys should get your message out there into the world, because no matter if there are 2.8 million podcasts out there, you are not out there with your message. And as you can see from Dimple and Shaista's example of how exciting it is to get your message out into the world and what a big impact you can make in the world, and how cool it is to hear the impact you're making back into your inbox and into your world. You're like, oh my gosh, people are listening. This is awesome. Right? So thank you so much, Dimple, for being with us today. It's been awesome to have you. And just congratulations on all your guys' success. Guys, go make sure to go check out the I Am Mom Parenting podcast with Dimple Arora and Shaista Vitale. So go check it out. And until next time, guys, go out there, Your uniqueness is your genius. Amplifying it to the world is ours. Have a great week. Thanks, Dimple.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.